gays and lesbians. Intense psychological and emotional attraction towards a person of the same sex, and these tendencies culminate in the desire for physical union and thus sexual intercourse. These tendencies differ qualitatively from other usual sexual relations, such as biological sex and social sex, and the social role of sex, as homosexual tendencies differ from these types of sexual behavior, in that they are a result of often vague feelings mixed with a homosexual view of himself and the degree of acceptance of his tendencies. A person does not necessarily express their sexual orientation through sexual intercourse. Homosexuality is an example of any desire for the same sex, meaning that a person feels an emotional and instinctive attraction towards people of the same sex. The term is used in Western scientific books. The term homosexuality does not necessarily express a person's sexual behavior. Homosexuality is not synonymous with sodomy or lesbianism. Many homosexuals do not practice homosexuality or lesbianism, while we find many who practice sodomy or lesbianism are heterosexual and not homosexual. Therefore, we can consider that the term homosexuality refers to the sexual and emotional attraction of people of the same sex. There are theories by psychologists and psychiatrists claim that sexual orientation, what is meant by sexual feelings and desires, cannot be a choice. How can a person choose the type of his sexual feelings, and how can you choose your sexual desires? A normal person finds himself sexually and emotionally attracted to the opposite sex without any will from him, and the ideal person finds himself attracted towards individuals of himself or herself without his will. The relationship between homosexuality and psychiatry is very complex, and it has become more complicated in recent years due to the political and social dimensions of the matter. The vast majority of those who have homosexual behaviors do not consult psychiatrists and do not submit any complaints of psychological symptoms, as there is no religious deterrent. It has become necessary to divide the individuals who consult with psychologists into three groups. Those who have difficulty accepting their homosexual tendencies and feelings without having homosexual practices. Those who have homosexual practices and also psychological problems. Those who have homosexual practices as well as various problems as a result of their AIDS. Those who have difficulty accepting their homosexual orientation usually seek treatment because 1. Their feeling of guilt cannot be eliminated, and this is usually related to religious, cultural, and social background, and personal opinions about the nature of relationships. 2. Or because they failed homosexual relationships for various reasons, as these relationships are usually fragile, and filled with intense jealousy, and feelings of loss and abandonment that usually accompany the failure of those relationships. The percentage of homosexuals is at least 4% of the total population of the world, which is equivalent to 240 million gays and lesbians out of a total of 6 billion people on the planet. It was found that gay men are less happy than their heterosexual counterparts. Homosexuals are more likely to have psychosomatic symptoms, more lonely, depressed, and suicidal, less self-esteem than heterosexuals. Consequently, they are more likely to have psychological problems than others. Social attitudes towards homosexuality have changed over the course of centuries, from rejection and outright persecution to acceptance and familiarity with it and in between. As for the opinion of religion on homosexual issues, it is different. The monotheistic religions explain that homosexual acts and homosexuals in general are anomalies, while we find that Buddhism tolerates homosexuals and their actions. The judicial authorities in many countries criminalize the homosexual act and sentence its perpetrators to penalties ranging from imprisonment and so on. The relationship between moral condemnation of homosexuality and the legal situation is complicated. The rainbow flag is used as a slogan for homosexuality in the world, and in Western societies, pre-industrial societies, there was acceptance of homosexuals among various classes of society, and a slight acceptance among the bourgeois, until the majority agreed that it was an immoral act. At the beginning of the 19th century, most of the authorities adopting Napoleonic law did not have a civil law for homosexuality, but the authorities adopted British common law and had laws against homosexuals and executed same-sex practitioners until the late 1800s. In the United Kingdom, homosexuality was legalized for men over the age of the 21-year-old and changed that to the 18-year-old and to the 16-year-old, and this age is equivalent to the opposite sex. In the United States, in June 2003 the U.S. Supreme Court overturned all laws condemning homosexuals in all states, in a ruling known as Lawrence of Texas. In China, there is no law dedicated to homosexual behavior. So homosexuals are normal people who live among us. We cannot separate them from society in form. After paradoxing the two examples of tendencies about gay practice, it becomes clear that there is a good percentage, especially with the technological development and the societal impact it causes on the one hand, and the negative impact on people who cannot control themselves. The actors have reasons outside their will that put them in such a situation, the most important of which are the transactions that took place in their childhood from physical or sexual harassment, verbal paradox, or the separation of a homosexual parent from the child and lack of direct contact, and it has not been proven that a case was born a lesbian, but it is the result of actions and actions not to. Therefore, I found the right solutions to heal from homosexuality, and usually solutions are easier and faster with homosexuality or emotion, and the religions did not leave a gap in our society, for every problem has a solution, and among the most important solutions is the right legal marriage and the fulfillment of healthy emotional desires that overwhelm any homosexual or uneven feeling in nature humanity. Thank you for watching the video. Do not forget to subscribe, like and share, so as to receive the new hot files.